Now to that controversial story now, and the Ministry of Health has confirmed ongoing talks with the U.S. government to set up quarantine centers for American citizens exposed to or infected by the deadly Ebola disease.
Imagine you are a Kenyan. You wake up one morning, you pour your tea, you open your phone, and the headline stops you cold. Kenya approves U.S. Ebola quarantine facility. You read it again, slowly, because your brain refuses to process it. Your president, the man you elected to protect you, has quietly signed away a piece of your soil to house patients from a disease so deadly that America itself refused to let them in. A disease that has already killed over 200 people in 11 days. A disease for which Kenya has no vaccine, no cure, no proper containment facility.
You are not angry yet. You are something worse. You are confused. Why would he do this? What did Kenya get in return? Who approved this and who was kept in the dark? Stay with me, because this story goes deep. This is about power, money, sovereignty, and one president's very dangerous gamble with the lives of 45 million people.
Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, May 2026. The World Health Organization has declared a global public health emergency. In just 11 days, over 1,000 suspected Ebola cases, more than 200 dead. This is the third largest Ebola outbreak ever recorded on Earth. Ebola does not negotiate. It does not respect borders. It spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids, blood, sweat, saliva. Once it enters your body, it begins to destroy you from the inside. Your organs fail, you bleed, and in many cases, you die. Health authorities in Congo are losing the race. Armed groups control vast territories in eastern Congo. Millions of people are displaced. Infrastructure is shattered. The virus is outpacing every response thrown at it. American doctors, missionaries, and health workers are on the ground in that region. Some of them have been exposed. And the question sitting on the desk of the Trump White House is simple and brutal. What do we do with them? The answer they gave will shock you. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stood before the cabinet and declared, "We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States." Those words sound reasonable, protective even, until you understand what they actually mean. In the 2014 outbreak, 6 Americans who contracted Ebola in West Africa were brought home to the United States for treatment. Health workers, a journalist, a humanitarian volunteer, they were brought home, treated, and saved. That is what every previous administration did. Democrat or Republican, you bring your people home. Not this time. The Trump administration decided instead to send Americans exposed to the virus to Kenya for monitoring and treatment, a complete reversal of decades of U.S. policy. America built world-class Ebola isolation units after the 2014 outbreak. One former USAID director noted, "The U.S. has invested for years in a whole network of very capable Ebola isolation and treatment facilities. Rather than having confidence in the capabilities we've built up here, we're sending them just literally anywhere else." America locked its doors, and then it knocked on Kenya's. Here is where this story becomes uniquely Kenyan, because someone had to say yes. Kenya provided written approval for the United States to open a quarantine facility on Kenyan soil, authorization that grants the U.S. access to land at an Air Force base, according to 2 U.S. officials briefed on the response. The facility is being established at the Laikipia Air Base, a military base on Kenyan soil for American Ebola patients, approved by President William Ruto's government. Kenya's 2 largest newspapers, The Daily Nation and The Standard, both led their front pages with the story. It dominated television, talk shows, and radio across the country. Critics expressed open disbelief that President William Ruto's government had agreed to the Ebola facility. And yet, the Kenyan government did not hold a press conference, did not address parliament, did not tell the public. The official statement said nothing about who approved the arrangement, on what legal basis, or what it means for Kenyans. Ruto did not stand before his people and explain himself. The deal was done, in the dark.
Now, let us follow the money, because there is always money. President Ruto publicly defended the Kenya-US Health Cooperation Framework, saying it would not shortchange Kenyans and that it is anchored on firm legal ground. He revealed the US would support Kenya's healthcare system to the tune of $1.6 billion and stressed this is not a loan facility. $1.6 billion. That sounds significant until you read the fine print. That $1.6 billion deal actually represents a reduction of approximately $423 million compared to what the United States was previously providing to Kenya in health funding. The deal was immediately challenged in Kenya's High Court, with opponents criticizing it as deeply unfavorable to Kenya. So President Ruto agreed to host American Ebola patients, and in exchange, Kenya gets less money than it was getting before. Ruto did not stand before his people and explain himself. The deal was done in the dark.
Less money, more risk, more disease. Professor Lawrence Gostin, director of the WHO Center on Global Health Law, called the US plan reckless, unethical, and possibly unlawful. And one of the most damning voices came from inside the deal itself. The facility is built, staffed, and run entirely by Americans, with no Kenyan involvement in operations. Kenya provides the soil. America runs the facility. And if something goes wrong, it is Kenyans who will live with the consequences.
Kenya's doctors were not consulted. The main doctors' union in Kenya told CNN they opposed the plan, saying it risks importing Ebola into a nation that currently has no cases. The Law Society of Kenya also formally called on the government to reject the facility. Law Society President Charles Kanjama pointed directly at Rubio's words. "We will not sit back and watch Kenya be treated as a containment colony for a lethal pathogen that we did not generate. If it is too dangerous for America, it is too dangerous for Kenya." Parliament was not consulted. The public was not consulted. Even America's own health professionals warned against it. CDC officials strongly recommended against the plan, with the agency's own acting director reportedly advising against it. Some officers at the CDC said they are furious and believe it will make Ebola response work harder to staff in future. The experts in both countries said no. The politicians said yes anyway. Let us be very precise about the danger Kenyans face. Safely handling Ebola requires a biosafety level 4 facility, the highest classification in the world, requiring specialized infrastructure and elite staff. Kenya's existing facilities only reach biosafety level 3. The country has no BSL-4 facility at all. America has BSL-4 facilities. America chose not to use them. Kenya has one isolation center capable of handling Ebola, at Kenyatta National Hospital. It has a handful of biosafety level laboratories that can confirm Ebola samples. Furthermore, Kenya does not have an approved vaccine or treatment for the Bundibugyo strain currently circulating in Congo. This is not an opinion. This is science. Kenya is being asked to manage a disease it has no proper tools to contain, so that America can keep its own facilities clean. But Kenya did not bow in silence. The Katiba Institute filed an urgent petition at the Milimani High Court, seeking to block the government from establishing or permitting any Ebola quarantine, isolation, or treatment facility linked to the United States or any foreign government on Kenyan soil. They named the Attorney General and the Cabinet Secretary for Health as respondents. The petition argues the arrangement would position Kenya as an offshore quarantine hub for foreign states and condemns the failure to carry out any environmental impact assessments,
biosafety evaluations, or parliamentary approvals before the deal was struck. The petition invokes Articles 26, 43, 35, 10, and 94 to 96 of the Kenyan Constitution: the right to life, the right to health, access to information, national values of accountability and transparency, and the requirement of parliamentary oversight for decisions of this magnitude. Let this be clear for every Kenyan watching this. Your constitution is not decorative. It is a weapon, and right now, it is pointed at the right people. Article 26 says you have the right to life. A government that knowingly exposes you to a deadly pathogen without your consent is violating that right. Article 43 says you have the right to the highest attainable standard of health. Hosting an under-equipped Ebola facility is a direct attack on that standard. Article 35 says you have the right to information. Secret negotiations conducted without public disclosure violate that right. Article 10 demands transparency, public participation, and accountability in governance. A deal struck in the dark, without Kenyans, violates all three. Articles 94 to 96 make clear that Parliament, not the President alone, holds the authority to make binding international arrangements. The petition argues that advancing this deal without Parliament constitutes a serious constitutional violation. Ruto does not have the unilateral power to make Kenya a dumping ground, not legally, not constitutionally, not morally. American infectious disease experts have already arrived in Kenya and are preparing the facility. Secretary Rubio says it will be operational within 7 days. The clock is running. William Ruto made a deal, quietly, quickly, and without asking the 45 million people whose lives hang in the balance. He will call it diplomacy. He will call it partnership. He will call it $1.6 billion. But Kenyans on the street have a simpler word for it. Why do Americans think their lives are so much more important than the lives of Kenyans? That question is now before the High Court. It is now on the front pages of every newspaper in the country. It is now in the mouths of doctors, lawyers, and ordinary citizens who refuse to be silent. The fight is not over. Kenya has a constitution. Kenya has courts. Kenya has a voice. And the most dangerous thing a president can do is forget that. If you are Kenyan, share this video. Your people need to know. Like, subscribe, and drop one word in the comments. Sovereign. If you believe Kenya is not for sale.